Hey, good morning, afternoon, folks. Get started here in a couple of moments. Anesh, I saw that you were on. Were you hoping to present today or not necessarily?
Uh, Sorry, did you ask something?
I,
I
I, I
missed.
wanted to know if you were hoping to present today.
Yeah, I can present today. Yeah, that's
All
why I
right. Well,
said.
we will find some time, and if we don't have enough discussion, we'll come back to it. But
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
all right. Can you remind me, Anesh, of the acronym? It's IOS or ISO, iOS.
iOS MCN, Mobile Communication Network, short form for MCN.
Okay. I am looking at who is on. From the TST, and the reason for this is our first item actually does involve a vote at some point, not necessarily today. We've got four of us, myself, Gabriel, Scott, and Andy, I see. But we may get some more joining here, so keep an eye on
Um,
it.
Larry, Ajay is not joining. He said he has a prayer meeting in the office. And also Woo Jun through Slack said that he's not joining, but he agreed with the document that you share.
Okay, thanks. Did Wushan post something? Maybe he's posted
Yeah,
something.
he posted through Slack. He mentioned that's
Now
where
I
he
see
said
it.
that he's not going to be able to join, and but that he does agree with the document.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so well, let's get going, and I think what we'll probably end up doing is we'll do an offline vote just to make sure everyone gets a say. But I wanted to make sure everyone understood that there is a document. Well, I can link it here. This link should work for anyone that wants to look at it. Michelle, you can chime in with some background here, but my reading, this draft came to us from LF, is my understanding. And so there's a fair amount of, let's just call it standard boilerplate in here. And certainly the fact that there's a governing board is already an established thing. That's the fund. And there's a technical charter. These were all written up a year ago when the project moved to LF. But it's delegated to the TST to define its own rules for how TST operates. And that's a fairly standard thing in LF. So I don't think you will find any surprises in here unless you're an old-time LF member and you know that this is typically called the steering committee instead of the steering team. But we took the language from ONF. The goals, do the right thing, technical vision, shepherding, meritocracy, and so on, principles. I'll let you read this for yourself. Roles and responsibility. I guess one of the biggest things in here is simply that I think it's stated in here somewhere, the TST is not at the granularity of approving pull requests. it's a, oversight. There will still be individuals who are doing reviews and so on of every individual repo. So like I said, I don't think you'll find any surprises in here, but please do peruse it. We have typically not done a vote as a TST up to this point because generally there's not been anything particularly contentious. So we're by consensus. But there are established guidelines when we do need to take a vote. The current team was not technically elected; it was appointed by ONF, and we inherited it. And so I've conferred with the various members what we would like to do. I forget, it says in here somewhere is that we would like to stagger the members so that not everyone comes up for election every year. So I've chatted with people. We can still make adjustments to this, but this is kind of where the dust settled on half of us this year, half of us next year. And I think maybe the biggest thing is it comes down to the biggest thing the TST is to do is define the election process for the TST. So this is where we get nominations, there's an election, you get to vote if you've been a contributor. So that's kind of a quick overview of it. Michelle, is there other things to say about this?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I think just with the idea of having elections, it was a good idea to kind of write down what the process should be, since that is based on the technical charter up to the TST to decide. This is a process that's very similar to what was previously done at ONF for the projects. So like you mentioned, there really shouldn't be any surprises. This is pretty straightforward, but it's good to just have it documented where it's easily referenceable. So if anybody has any questions, hopefully this document answers them. But if people do review it and have questions, please let us know, because it might be something we do want to incorporate into it so that it's as transparent and open as possible.
Yeah, and just so everyone understands, this is not etched in stone. We're always free to change this. So even if we were to choose to do this today, or in a vote so that we could get the election going, if we chose to come back and make changes to it, then the TST can make changes to it. According to the rules that we have in place for doing that. Yeah, so that's the overview. What I'm thinking I might do is postpone towards the end of the hour if there's anyone that has discussion points or wants to raise points, so that I see that Sean's now on, so I think technically we do have a quorum. Yeah. Yeah, so this is how rigorous we've been in the past. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have 5 on, so we do technically have a quorum if we chose to vote. Informally, Wu Zhang was in favor, but I don't think that we technically would count that. Anyway, let's set this aside and come back to it towards the end. If you have a chance to take a quick look at it, feel free to do that. We do have some infrastructure. Oh, and be thinking about who you would encourage and nominate. And we can talk about that a little bit more at the end as well. We do have an infrastructure point that Daff raised. Do you want to hit that, Daff? I thought I saw him on. Yeah, David, there you are. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Well, okay. Currently, we have a single server that supports all the documentation for all the projects. One thing we'll need to do is split out both the documentation and Aether documentation, so we're not sharing resources just for project portability. So something's going to change. But the question is, do we want to set up a new server to run stuff locally as we've been doing? Do we want to publish to GitHub? Do you want to publish to read the docs, which is pretty standard throughout LF and runs $60 a year? Just want to throw it out. And what is people's goals? Any comments?
Well, just as a round number, do you have any sense of what we're paying for a year for it's probably well more than $60.
It's more than 60. It's basically call it a third of the cost of the machine, which is running about 300 a month. So call it 100 a month for the server. Now, that's really the only cost right now is paying for the EC2 server. Ideally, all the docs could be pushed off to readless docs for the Sphinx, and there's another group that handles WordPress docs inside LF that we can offload resources for that one as well as soon as we get there. But call it roughly 50 to 100 a month right now for associated server costs.
All right, thanks. So we do use read the docs formatting. We just don't use read the docs to service.
Correct.
And I added this once I saw that DAF had put this on the agenda, that we do have the ability to publish this ourselves on GitHub without paying for a server. We just haven't. Bruce Davey and I have done that with the books that we publish, which actually inherited their make files and everything and things and read the docs from ONF. So we figured out how to do that on GitHub. We just haven't taken that step. And I would think that would be a pretty straightforward thing to do as well. So we have both options at some point, as soon as we get the wherewithal to make a move. Does anyone have any experience with the service?
Much of release engineering across all other projects use it today. And I won't say I'm under pressure, but I'm certainly being strongly recommended to move to it by my management.
So we have the source for all the docs in GitHub. Does that change? Is it merely
No.
where you?
The repositories are linked into their SaaS state, and their process will automatically build the docs and republish.
It might be worth playing with just to see how well it works. I mean, we've perhaps adapted ours a little bit. I don't know how standard we currently are.
Yep. I ran the local infra docs through it, and it built it nice and clean. I can play with the others and have a test bed that people can look at next week.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to run the Google, the Aether docs and see if it works, that would be helpful to know.
All right, I'll do that so we can discuss further next week on that then. My second item is just I'm trying to offload all references to ONF networking domains, as opposed to the domains that have been moved over into Linux Foundation. For example, ether.org, omecproject.org, volta.org. These sites are now LF owned, but opennetworking.org will remain under ONF. And as such, we should start moving various links and DNS sites across. So starting that process, you may see some name changes, but mostly everything should happen behind the scenes. The only real issue are sites that have been accessed directly via opencore.org, which will be going away within a year, and we'd like to obsolete it fairly soon. Most of that should be replaced by Volta.org, so our group won't necessarily care. But we will be seeing some of that.
I believe it is now the case that Ether has no references to opencore.org.
There's one thing I'm not sure of. All the docs and stuff look good.
I'm not sure whether I missed the point, but aren't the GitHub Actions actually pushing to their documentation updates to this static.opennetworking.org?
Ultimately, everything pushed to static.opennetworking.org as a server, as a host. But the DNS sites are kind of a mishmash, and those will be what fixing up.
Okay.
The machine that is currently called static.opennetworking.org will very quickly be called etherdocs.etherproject.org.
Oh, perfect.
But nobody should notice that.
But we need to update those in the GitHub Actions, right?
Depends on what the GitHub Actions point to. If they point straight to static.opennetworking, yes.
That's what as far as I remember.
Charge that Ether project.
Yeah, as far
Yeah,
as I remember, I think
and
they are punting.
Okay.
that,
Then
and
they need to
Gabriel,
change
this is where we could just go ahead and self-publish on GitHub too.
Yep. Yeah.
So I
Uh,
think these are all kind of bundled
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, the docs changes need to get pulled off, are separate,
Yeah.
but they're sitting on that machine. But there's other conflicts in there.
Just to confirm, Daf, yes, we are pushing to static.opennetworking.org, which is
Okay.
the host
That would,
itself.
that would need
So
to
that's
change,
something
right?
that we may need to change. Okay.
Good. Okay, and the third bullet I added here in the infrastructure, and this is to DAF, there's a ticket file, but when I looked at the stats on contributors and so on, which is information we're going to need for the election, then it's only taking into account Open Networking Lab, the org, not OMEC project and not ONOS project.
So I'm sorry. Is that bullet saying that it was or needs to be?
I'm sorry. I needed to come back here. Insight needs to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the tracking ticket I found was not the one you referenced, Larry. Instead, it was support -31010.
I thought I did a cut and paste. Maybe I made a mistake.
Okay, not a big deal. Just took me a bit. All right.
Okay. So we're 20 minutes in. Anesh, I saw your presentation is not terribly long, and it's a nice introduction. So let's plan to spend 15 or so minutes on it. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you if you're ready for it.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I can do that.
Okay, so you should be able to grab it.
Thank you. Hope my presentation is visible to all of you.
Mhm. It is.
Yeah. Today I'm going to give a small introduction about the iOS MCN. Specifically, it's an India open source mobile communication network. It's a stakeholder ecosystem around the project iOS 5G. If you specifically ask about iOS 5G, it's a government of India funded project for the development of open source 5G stack. The collaboration partners of this project include Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and CDAC, Trivandrum. The specific objectives of iOS MCN include the development of an industry-grade open source 5G stack that includes RAN, core, and unified operations and management platform. And we need to develop everything under Apache license so that any startups or any other companies can adopt it and they can build on top of it and they can also go to the market. We are also ensuring continuous support for the startups to adopt it and build on top of it. And that's the beauty of it, because as a stakeholder, as a development partner of this project, it's a combination of both academy and industry. And we are taking as part of the government body into this project, and we don't have any intention to commercialize other than inviting or collaborating with some startups to adopt it and make them capable of some adding some value on top of it and going to the market. And if you the specific responsibility division among the development partners, Indian Institute of Science, that is on the left side. IAC is working on ORAN compliant RAN solution, and IIT Delhi, they are working on the monolithic GNB solution. And I am coming from CDAC. We are responsible for the open source 5G as well as the element management system, that is the OANTM part of both core and RAN. RAN includes both the monolithic GNB and the ORAN compliant solution. The specific responsibility of CDAC on both 5G core and EMS include, because we adopted ST core as our upstream project, and currently the SD core has support for all the network functions currently we are planning, except the N3WF, NEF, that is also in our roadmap. And as functional addition, we are also trying to include IMS integration, both for the voice as well as video. Then the other thing, we are mainly focusing on the testing aspects, because the stability and performance is one of the major aspects our stakeholders are looking to iOS MCN. That's why we are giving more importance to the testing part, both the automated and manual testing. One positive news is we recently completed our continuous 48-hour continuous test, longevity test, using both our RAN solution, RAN and core solution. The core solution was based out of SD core. And on the EMS side, that is currently we are actually having our own development, because we are taking care of the O&M of RAN and core. Core, we are still depending on the APIs exposed by SD core as part of its web console, but we are building a unified dashboard on top of it, where we are also trying to integrate the O&M part of the RAN, both the monolithic and the ORAN part. Where we are specifically trying to focus the telemetry of RAN and core and UE also. Then the statistics dashboard, basically from the N2, N3, N4 and N6 side, and the radio parameter dashboard and the alarm management, and along with the performance management part. Regarding the roadmap for CDAC, because CDAC, we are involving in the core as well as the O&M part. Our main target is IMS integration, that is targeting for March 2025, and NEF and N3WF we are targeting for August 25. Operations and management, we are planning to come up in 2 phases. The first phase we are targeting March 25, where we are targeting to come up with the unified dashboard for fault and performance management. And in August 25, we are trying to focus to come up with the configuration management of both RAN and the core network functions. This is the overall idea about iOS MCN. And currently, we are actually started working on the IMS integration. We already did the gap analysis with SD core, and we have already submitted a proposal. And currently, that is being reviewed by Ajay on the IMS integration. And along with, we are also taking care of whatever the testing outputs, bug fixes we are identified, bugs we are identified as part of our test. We are also raising corrections for that, and we are also submitting the PRs for that. That's the current development. Currently, we are carrying with the SD core team, and we are also thankful to all of you, because we are getting good support from all of the team members, especially Ajay. They helped us to lot actually to onboard us as part of the team, and submitting the new proposals and submitting PRs and reviews. And thank you very much, all of you. And if you have any questions, I am happy to answer.
Thanks. I really appreciate the hearing about this. So you, on your previous slide, you had the testing with 50,000 subscribers registered and 10,000 active.
This is the targeted one. Currently, what we have completed is we have completed up to 32 simultaneous UEs. That is also we have completed the 48-hour longevity test. That's the completed status about the testing. But this is the targeted one.
Got it. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks. Well, so while I'm asking questions, I got one other one, which is, when you say EMS, I assume that's an element management server system, which is.
Is it the IP multimedia system?
IP multimedia system
Oh,
for
okay.
voice
For
and video call. Yeah, voice and video calls.
So I'm seeing the terminology EMS on the previous slide.
Right.
Yeah, which I recognize as a telco term, as opposed to a cloud term. And I'm
Yes.
just wanting to get your sense of this. Your target is that this core appear as an element in a traditional telco deployment. Is that accurate?
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
That's why we named it as element management system.
So basically, gonna to follow Larry's questions. So it means that you are developing this IMS platform,
Yes.
and also
IMS.
this. Sorry,
Yes,
go ahead.
both developments, both the IMS as well as the EMS part we are developing, and we shall be contributing because we are developing it under the Apache license.
Yeah, as well the N3 IWF.
Yes,
Okay.
N3WF and NEF. That is
Mhm.
currently missing in SD card. These are two
Yep.
components. Yeah.
Mhm.
For EMS, are you going to use also the existing rock as a starting point or something
We are
completely different?
Yes, we are starting with existing components, but along with that, we are currently developing a unified dashboard. That is a fresh development. But the
Okay.
underlying components are open source components only. We are choosing it from existing open source like ONAP. We are building it, and the unified dashboard we are building from scratch.
Regarding the unified dashboard, I guess you guys are relying on the metric font that currently is part of the SD core, correct?
Right. For the core part, but the unified dashboard is also taking care of the RAN part also.
Mhm.
Where specifically
Okay.
we are actually picking components from the one app for the RAN control part and all. But eventually we will be moving with our own components for the RAN control also.
Mhm. Okay.
But for the RAN, we adopted OA RAN. That is our RAN upstream project. But we are customizing a lot, specifically on the XN handover and the NDO handover part. We have added as part of the OA code base that we have included and tested also.
Sorry, you said that you are taking the OAI project for the run.
RAN part, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Could you say a couple words about CDAC? Center for Development of Advanced Computing. So it's much broader than this. It's taken this on a project under that. What is CDAC? Is that a research institute? Is it government funded? Can you?
Right. It's a government funded research institute. We are coming under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And we are working on the supercomputing communication side. Specifically the major and strategic electronics also we are working. Our major focus is on supercomputing as well as on the communication aspects.
So this particular project, just what does it technically fall under? I'm just kind of curious. Is it software? Is it communication? What's the?
Yes, it's a because why this project is important for the government, because they are trying to build an ecosystem around 5G, because government of India is giving so much importance for the developments around 5G solution. That's why this project has been initiated by the ministry.
Got it. Thanks.
That's why we are also into that, because we are into communication. Actually, we were part of the building the communication system for military also earlier. That's why we are part of this project. But even though most of this particular thing is software only, but still considering the expertise in the communication domain, we were part of the project.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. That's helpful. Are there other questions? You have been tuned into our TST calls, so we have opportunities to continue to interact in the future too. So, but are there any other questions now?
Yeah, thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time.
thank you, thank you.
And
Can
listening to
we
me.
get, well, you already sent the slide deck. I have a copy. Is it okay if I link it here?
Sure, yeah, already sent, but I have slightly changed some slides. I'll send the updated one. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And I will
Yeah.
link, I will link it in the minutes here so everyone can see it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
The view deck. So I will put that in there at some point. All right. Let's see if I can get the sharing back here. Oops. Let's see, where are we? I skipped over on-ramp. There's not too much news there, except I do now have all the jobs, all the blueprints successfully being tested. But there are still fairly regular failures that point to some underlying problem. It's not necessarily in the core or any of the individual subsystems, but how they, the timing of how they get loaded or something, I don't know. But if you're looking for opportunities to find bugs, I probably could point you at some log files that you would find interesting. I'm going to watch the clock carefully and try to get back to the TST election with at least 10, 15 minutes, but let's go ahead and cover the core and ARE status if we could.
Yeah, so for the core, we enable secure communication, basically TLS, or for the service-based interface to use TLS by default in all the network functions. So now that is also, we merge also the Helm charts for that. We are not using that option yet on ramp, but the idea would be to start using secure communication as following 3GPP specs, right? The next step on that part is also, besides securing the SBI, we have a communication between the different network functions and the web UI, which is basically the entity where the NFs get their configuration, the configuration parameters, and also updates when need to. We need to secure that communication as well. So at the moment, that's not secure. Then along that line, it's also, for now, we are using kind of static certificates for the SBI. And improvement is to start using a self-signed static certificate. So the idea is to start using another different pod to kind of help us renew, like a cert manager to help us automatically renew the certificates, and also try to link with another certificate authority such that those certificates are actually kind of validated. And that kind of this use of the CA goes along with the gRPC security, because I try to use this enable the gRPC security, but it complains that the certificates are self-signed certificates. So it's kind of like it's asking me to use as certificate authority. So those kind of two things are kind of like linked to each other. But that's kind of the next step to improve that security and make it more aligned to deploy to a real deployment itself. That's kind of one thing that we did, and we are working on in improving what has been done. The other part is this kind of like alignment across all for the configuration across all the NFs. So the canonical team, a few months ago, they help us parameterize the path to where the certificates are located, because they were already using it, secure SBI. And along that line, something that was still needed is to kind of parameterize the path for the configuration file. So, and that's what we did last week. And the only thing that is missing for this week is the Gnos vSIM. That's the only thing that I have the changes completed locally, but we need to merge them. And the main goal in here is, again, update the Docker image was pointing to a specific fixed location. The binaries were being saved on a standard path location. The configuration flag or the argument had the name of the NF plus CF plus another name, which makes a little bit confusing and less standard. Again, parameterize the path file, and all these changes were done during last week and yesterday. So that's kind of like what we have done so far. I'm still kind of trying to debug an issue that I'm seeing from one of the PRs from the canonical team. They see that they say that it's working. Ajay verify over the weekend that it's also working for him, but for some reason in my local setup, it doesn't work. I redeploy the whole my whole registry, everything, but I still see the issue there. That's what I'm trying to kind of debug what's going on, so we can actually merge that only PR that is pending along those new configuration that Canonical propose for the gRPC communication. That's, I think, all that we have on my side.
All right, well, thank you. Questions, anything else on the core? Let's move on to the ARA project. Whoever's going to present there.
Yeah. So for the SD-WAN side, right now everything is work with OAI and USRP SDR in the sandbox, and I'm moving the test to the order setup. Yeah.
So in the outdoor testing, what can you be a little more? Since I've
Oh, yeah.
seen it, I just
So-
curious what that means.
Yeah, you may know that for our test bed, we also have some order deployment with the UE and the base station in farms or in like agriculture setup.
Yeah.
So
that-
we do, yeah,
Good.
we yeah, please continue. Yes.
And then on the core, I see the Ericsson debugging work is ongoing.
Yeah, sure. So I have checked with Suresh on the core side just to double check to make sure that there are no packets being dropped. So we checked and then we didn't see anything of that sort. We checked the UPF pipeline and everything. So what we are planning is to get a time to meet with the Ericsson run team so that we can kind of like check the whole tunnel from the UE to the core and make sure that no packets are being dropped, especially maybe at the Genome B side. So yeah, so we will update the team what the results may be.
So if I understood you correctly, we suspected last time that there was a TCP packet drop that caused a timeout, which caused a delay, which killed the throughput. But you're saying there wasn't a packet drop as you looked more closely?
So the last time I think we did not come to a conclusion what the issue was. So what our observation was after the troubleshooting with Suresh was that we could have the throughput get to like the maximum that we expect to see around 600, 700 Mbps, but somehow for some period of time or for some couple of seconds, we see the packet, the throughput drop to 0, and then it takes up again and then goes to 0. So in
Right.
average, we have a very low like throughput on the average. So we are kind of right now, our hypothesis is that somewhere in the tunnel, we have some packets being dropped and then kind of like go back to the default and being dropped and all that. So we have not been able to figure out what it is. Since we check the core side, we are not seeing any drops at the UPF side. So
Okay, that's the key. So the UPF is not dropping, but there's something else on the end-to-end path dropping, maybe the tunnel.
right.
Got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm anxious to find out what this is and what it is what the secret sauce that Ericsson has used to make their core work.
Yeah.
Anything else for the Iowa State team? Questions or anything? All right, let's move back to the governance document. Maybe you've had a chance to look at it. Are there any comments, questions, concerns, anything at all? Well, long time since I read Robert's Rules of Orders, but I'm going to ask for a motion from the TST that we vote to accept the document.
Okay.
Yeah, I propose we accept the
So
document.
moved in a second I need.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. This is way more formality than any of us are accustomed to or comfortable with, but thank you. So I've got a quorum of TST members. I'm just going to do a roll call here. Sean?
Yes, from me.
Gabriel?
Yes, for me.
Scott?
Yes from me.
Andy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so unanimously passed. Out of band, we know that Wu Zhang and AJ supported as well. So good. So that's officially in place, and anyone that wants to be on the TST, thinks of someone that is a contributor that should be on the TST, please send, twist arms. Let us know. You can send information to Michelle. You can send it to me. You could post it to the TST Slack if you prefer. I'm out beating the bushes to get some people as well. So hopefully in a, fairly short order, we'll have a list of people and we can open an election and set up an officially elected TST by the first of the year would be the goal. Is there anything else?
I would just add, now that governance has passed, Larry, you and I can work on a timeline for the election, and we can review that at next week's TST meeting.
No, that's good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's right. Good. All right, so be thinking about whether you want to volunteer to put your name in the hat or not, and we will talk about a timeline next time then. And with that, I think we're done. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye all.